excited to dive in. But how you doing?
I'm
Forgot to
doing good,
ask.
thank you.
Sorry. So
How are
excited.
you? You're like, just get to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Get to the topic.
I'm impatient today, apparently, I guess. I don't know.
It's all right.
Welcome to Conversations with Asha and Steve, where communication matters. Join us as we discuss effective ways to communicate, bridge the gaps, and build long-lasting relationships within your business and life. Here are your hosts, Asha Prasad and Steve Harper.
Hey, welcome to Conversations with Asha and Steve. I'm Steve Harper. With me, as always, is my amazing co-host, Dr. Asha Prasad. Asha, this is going to be a fun one. We've been doing this series for a while, so I'm excited to dive in. But how you doing?
I'm
Forgot to
doing good,
ask.
thank you.
Sorry. So
How are
excited.
you? You're like, just get to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Get to the topic.
I'm impatient today, apparently, I guess. I don't know.
It's all right.
You doing good, though?
I'm doing good, thank you. Thanks for asking, Steve.
You're welcome. See, this ties back into the question that we're going to ask today, which is,
Exactly.
I'm just trying to be super positive. So,
Yes, exactly. That's what it is. You're so enthusiastically positive that you just kind of, but that's
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So, what are we going to be talking about? Today, we're
The-
going to be talking about how does negativity run your life? Or is negativity running your life?
yeah. Oh, it's a good
Mm,
one. So I'm curious. I mean, you and I have, we're good friends. We share a lot, the ups and downs of business and
right,
all of our entrepreneurial ventures and some of the challenges we've had in our personal lives. And
right.
man, negativity can just be an absolute killer, can it? And this is
Yes.
this is a question that I think we've had to both ask ourselves from time to time, ask one
Yeah,
another actually from time to time.
exactly.
Are we letting the negativity run our life, right?
Yeah,
Is that what's happening? Is that why things aren't moving? Is that why, certain deals aren't happening the way we want them to, or
right.
we're not making the progress in our personal or professional lives like we had hoped? So I'm really curious, how do you deal with this particular question?
Yeah, well, you know what? I think in an ideal utopian world, we would not want to have any negativity, right? We would want everything to be hunky dory and positive and, sunshine and rainbows, but it's not that way.
Yeah.
And so when the negativity is hitting you in the face, it doesn't mean, here's the thing, like I find that sometimes when people say, oh, well, I'm a very positive person. Yes, that can be, right? But sometimes when things are negative, it's about really being optimistic about it. It's about being able to recognize the gray cloud that may be there,
Hmm.
not getting swept away with it, but trying to refocus. This is for me, Steve, one of the things that I have found is I can see negativity and lots, whenever you have lots of negativity around you, it can be really easy to kind of go along with it. But if you can kind of take that pause, like we've talked about before, practice that pause, step back and be like, okay, what kind of outcome do I want to have here? What is like, keep your eye on that further off goal. It will change your way that you may not get 100% positive, but then you become neutral.
Hmm.
And from that neutrality, then you can start to creep your way up, the positivity ladder or the optimistic ladder, because it'll help you kind of rise above it.
Yeah.
I know that it's hard sometimes. I've had some challenges in my life recently, in the personal life and with family, that have just sometimes it's just like, oh my God, there's so much negativity. How, where do I see the light? And sometimes you have to really dig really, really far. But
Yeah.
if you are geared that way, you can do it. You can. And so it doesn't have to run your life. It doesn't have to ruin your life. You can actually rise above it.
Yeah. I
That's yeah.
I love that. I mean, it does take a special person to rise above it, though, right? So let me ask you this question. What happens
Mhm.
if you find you're one of those individuals that just is always negative, always been that
Yeah.
way? You're always looking for the downside of everything, or you're always contemplating what could go wrong, or you're just
Right.
a generalized curmudgeon about life, right? So how do you suggest people sort of like short circuit that so that they can start looking and considering other alternatives?
Well, I mean, you know what? Here's the thing about that, Steve. Not everybody is going to want to flip the switch.
Yeah.
Some people love swimming around in that negativity. They
Yeah.
like to get, how when you swim around the water, your fingers get all pruny and everything.
Yeah.
Like, some people just love swimming around in that, and they're more than likely not going to want to change it. They
Uh-huh.
probably are attached to it for some reason. Now, if I'm a positive person or optimistic person sitting across from them, it's not my job to change them, right? But how I deal with them and that how I respond to whatever they're saying, and it may be to the point where I choose, if possible, not to be in too much communication with this person if
Yeah.
that's where they want to reside. Because it's not my job to change somebody. If they say that they want to be positive, if they say that, then you can have a conversation. Then there's an opening to be able to help them. And if you're somebody that is really wanting to be more positive, find positive people out there that you can connect with. Talk with
Mm-hmm.
them.
Yeah.
Because more than likely, if you're swimming around that negativity, I guarantee you the people around you are all negative,
Yeah.
thinking negatively.
Yeah.
Don't you think? I mean, Steve, what do you think about that?
Well, I think our the average person probably knows whether they're generally upbeat and positive, or if they tend
Right.
to gravitate towards the negative and the downside of circumstances. I do
Mm-hmm.
think that that's a if you happen to be one of those people, life has got to get awfully heavy and very
Yeah.
challenging and difficult because nobody wants to be around you or doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily want to be exposed to just someone who is always sees the bad in everything, right?
Right.
The that has to weigh on you, and that has to, when you look around and you realize that the only people that you're probably hanging out with are the same people that are kind of doomsday kind of mindset, and
Exactly.
how what a horrible existence that would be, right? And so the
Right.
consideration that you might have is there a better way? And is there a different way to live my life? Is there a different way to look at what's happening in the world, or my own personal circumstances, or my
Right.
financial outlook, or what I want to do from
Right.
a career perspective? There's always a different approach. And one of the things that I
Mhm.
would highly recommend is looking for professional help and saying, hey, look, I want to overcome this. I want to get out of this this negative mindset, which really does feel like kind of an anchor around your neck. I mean, you just can't
It
move,
does.
you can't get
Gosh.
motivated, you can't get inspired, and you need someone, whether that is seeking professional medical guidance to
Right.
overcome that, or maybe it's just as maybe it's just hiring a coach to come in
Right.
and sort of work with you to figure out how you can start to reframe and look at things differently, ask better questions, get more
Right.
actively involved and engaged in changing your outlook on life and the
Yeah.
circumstances that you find yourself in. I think it's so important. And I remember a guy that I worked with for a long time, who turned out to be a phenomenal hire. But when we hired him, he was just an absolute pain in the ass. I mean, it was just frustrating
Right.
because everything was negative. Everything was why it wouldn't work, why it didn't, it's not going to be
Right.
possible. And, everything was around, he wasn't committed to putting any more effort towards,
Hmm.
achieving what the company was asking of him, because that was he wasn't being paid for those kinds of things. And I just asked him one day, I'm like, I'm curious, how's that working for you? I mean, like, you're
Yeah.
negative on everything. I don't think I've heard anything positive ever come out of your mouth. And it was like one of those questions that just kind of woke him up, and he was like, well, I've kind of always been this way. I'm like, yeah, but again, how's that working for you? Because I can tell you, you won't be here very long. And, looking at your
Right.
resume, you don't last anywhere beyond a year, because I think
Right.
people get tired of putting up with your crap, and they
Yeah.
eventually, move on from you. And that has to feel pretty devastating when it happens. And he's like, yep. I'm like,
Exactly.
but we're headed down that path, and I'd prefer not to go down that path. I'd like to try and figure out what I can do to help you see,
Right.
a different way forward. And it really came down to him just having a real negative outlook on life, because that he came from a
Yeah.
negative family upbringing. Everything,
Right.
the man was out to get you, the
Right.
the
Exactly.
government's against you, everything,
Yeah.
and hey, there could be some truth to all the things that they
Right.
were exposed to and thought about, but at the end of the day, you got, breath in your lungs. You got up this morning. You've got an opportunity to go, make a difference and contribute. And, it wasn't like a overnight success, but what we started doing was every time that he started saying something negative, I would just put my hand up and say, wait, you're doing
Right.
it again. And
Exactly.
it shifted, right? He needed somebody to kind of like, mentally, shake him to say, hey, wait, if I don't have anything positive to say, maybe I shouldn't say it, right? And
Right.
that simple trick really started to shift his attitude and
That's
perspective.
awesome.
And so, if you find yourself as one of those people that really everything is negative, maybe it is time to get somebody to help coach
Yeah.
you through that circumstance, because you're probably not going to get out of it on your own.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, Steve. If someone doesn't have access to engage with somebody, one of the ways that I would encourage somebody to just start themselves is to practice gratitude. Literally make yourself sit down. And I know I've had some clients that have been so pessimistic and so negative that for me to even get them to say one thing that they're grateful for has been seriously like pulling teeth.
Yeah.
But once they started doing it and they started doing it consistently, they started to shift themselves. And they started to realize that, you know what? Like you were saying, it's like, okay, I have my health. I am healthy. I got up this morning. I have air in my lungs. My heart's beating. I'm able to walk. I'm able to, so they started really shifting that. And that in itself will help flip the switch to just rewire your brain to be more positive.
Yeah.
But I think it's great, to have that reminder. I think that that's wonderful that you were able to do that with that employee, because that made I'm sure that that's changed his entire life.
Yeah, I mean, he's
Yeah,
like a senior leader at the company he works for now. I sold
it's
my
great.
company that he worked for, so he stayed for a very long time, and then ended up
Yeah,
parlaying some of the experience he had, and he now leads teams.
that's awesome.
And it's great to see, because you see potential in people. That's why you hire them. But at the end of the
Exactly.
day, I don't think that he was ever going to pull himself out of that. That
Right.
that sludgy kind of real
Yeah,
heavy kind of you know bad mojo that he was carrying around every day, and that's where the
exactly.
negativity is by design to do that. And so I think it's really
True.
critical. It's good to understand and embrace when you're starting to be negative, and you can't
Hmm.
have positivity without negativity. So there's
Right.
elements of understanding both sides of that coin. But at the end of the day, I think it's so critical that we ask this question on an ongoing, consistent basis, because
Yes.
it can change everything. And like you said, your advice to your clients and your activity about practicing gratitude is one of the quickest ways to recalibrate the
Right.
negativity barometer, if you will, so that you are focused on the right things, and at least considering other alternatives than just doom and gloom.
Exactly. No, it's very important. I mean, we have to ask ourselves that this question specifically because anywhere you look, you can find negativity.
Yeah,
Try to look for something positive. You can find it still, but it may be a little bit more challenging.
yeah.
It's really interesting. But we have that choice in that matter. So learning to choose something differently will really help.
Absolutely. Well, another
Hmm.
great question in this series. I mean, we're getting great feedback from our audience about how much they're
Yes.
enjoying this, and grateful for everybody who tunes in, whether it's on the podcast platforms, YouTube, or Facebook. Asha, if people want to share their thoughts on this episode or any of the other questions, or maybe even a series that they would like us to cover here at some point this year,
Right.
how could they do that?
Definitely follow us on Facebook or Instagram. Get on there, message us there, drop a comment below the video. Go to YouTube, subscribe so that way you get alerted for all of our new episodes. And those are probably the best ways. And definitely, if you drop us a comment or send us a private message, we'll definitely get back to you.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, we'll be back again with another episode of Conversations with Asha and Steve very soon, with another good question to wrap up this series. So we're excited to finish this up, and we'll see you again in the next episode.
Sounds good.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Conversations with Asha and Steve. We love to hear feedback and questions from our listeners. Please feel free to visit our Facebook page for more tips and information. You can also email us directly at info@ripplecentral.com for more information.